In today's program, the CCSA will consider a plan to completely reopen the country before the end of the year. Meanwhile, a police chief has been transferred following allegations that he accidentally killed a man while demanding a 2 million baht bribe. And yet another tourism bubble program being drafted, this time for Chiang Mai. Details on these stories coming right up. You're watching Thailand News Today, bringing you the latest top stories in Thailand and beyond. In our first story, the CCSA is expected to debate a plan to completely reopen the country before the end of the year, in line with the Prime Minister's pledge last June. Back then, Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha vowed to reopen the country within 120 days, which would have meant mid-October, but COVID-19 infections have risen significantly since those words were uttered. But the narrative now seems to have evolved from containing COVID to living with COVID, a stance some other governments are now talking. And following a dropping trend in daily cases, officials are also hopeful that we may be past the peak. Dr. Opat Karngawinpong from the Department of Disease Control is to submit a 4-part reopening plan called Smart Control and Living with COVID-19. The key points cover controlling the virus and protecting the healthcare system through vaccinating at-risk people, developing new vaccines, adhering to disease prevention measures, and accelerating the work of COVID-19 response teams across the country. He went further to predict Thailand's current curfews and restriction measures are due to end on August the 31st, at which point the government will discuss regarding the color coding of provincial zones. The province of Chiang Mai is getting ready to launch a bubble and sealed tourism plan where visitors can travel to 4 districts in Chiang Mai. Again, it's the TAT pushing along its agenda of reopening the country's hardest hit tourist areas to fully vaccinated foreign tourists. The 4 districts are the Mueang District, Mae Rim, Mae Tang, and Doi Tao. The TAT says Chiang Mai is set to become the first landlocked province to reopen. Plans to reopen Pattaya are currently shelved after Chonburi province's uptick in new cases. Chiang Mai is planning to kick off the Bubble and Sealed plan on October the 1st under the name Charming Chiang Mai and will approximate the same conditions and restrictions as the Phuket Sandbox and the Samui Plus models and all the fun paperwork involved. A police chief in Nakhon Sawan is being transferred following allegations that he accidentally killed a man while demanding a 2 million baht bribe. A plastic bag was allegedly tied over the man's head and he suffocated to death, but the superintendent of the station wrote the death off as a drug overdose, according to a report to the Royal Thai Police. 2 suspects were arrested on drug charges and brought into the provincial police station on August the 5th for questioning by the province's narcotics suppression team. During the interrogation, the station's superintendent allegedly demanded 2 million baht from the man and the woman, according to the police. A plastic bag was put over the man's head and he subsequently suffocated to death. The police report then claims that, quote, the superintendent then ordered the doctor to put the cause of death down as drug overdose and told the woman to keep quiet before releasing her. Station police officers then filed an official complaint against the superintendent because they could not accept his behavior. The station's superintendent is now being transferred to the Provincial Police Region 6 during an investigation into the alleged extortion attempt and the man's death. An anti-government protest planned for Bangkok this Sunday will be led by 2 prominent red-shirt activists ahead of a no-confidence debate in Parliament. The 2 red-shirt protagonists will lead the car mob rally, set to take place at 2 p.m. in front of the Thai PBS office on Vipawadi Rangsit Road. The Facebook post says the rally is being planned ahead of another no-confidence debate leveled at the performance of the PM, called by the opposition and due to take place in Parliament in under a month. The Post says more anti-government protests will take place during the debate. Last weekend's car mobs ended up in violent clashes between groups of activists and police at the Dindang intersection in the capital, with one teenage protester still in a coma after being shot. The police have denied using live rounds, and confusion remains over who shot the young activist and a number of others. 42 protesters have since been arrested, with the Metropolitan Police Bureau saying they all face multiple charges, including unlawful gathering to incite chaos and violating the emergency decree. Tourism officials in the southern province of Phang Nga hope to welcome 30,000 foreign tourists in the last quarter of this year. The expected numbers exceed the number of travelers arriving in Phuket over the past 8 weeks since the Sandbox opening on July the 1st. The TAT claims that after the opening of Certificate of Entry registration for the 7+7 scheme, over 700 hotel room nights have been booked for the August to September period across 4 areas, including Phang Nga. The areas allowed for international travelers will be heavily controlled with checkpoints and daily checks on travelers. Sounds like a blast. Following news of a fatal attack in Narathiwat yesterday, a soldier has been injured after a pipe bomb was tossed into a military base in Yala. Both provinces are part of Thailand's deep south, bordering Malaysia, and have been part of an ongoing religious separatist insurgency. The incident occurred last night. The attack happened around 8 p.m. The bomb had been thrown into the operations base of Platoon 1 of Infantry Company 15211. A 22-year-old, originally from Trang Province, sustained an injury to his left shoulder. He was later taken to the Yala hospital for treatment. 2 trucks and a car were also damaged by the bomb. Malaysia's COVID situation and the restrictions imposed have aggravated shortages of semiconductors and other components, short-circuiting the supply chain for Thailand's auto manufacturing industry. Thailand's southern neighbor has not historically had the kind of importance of technology supply, but in recent years, Malaysia has emerged as a major center for chip testing and packaging, becoming as important as the major semiconductor suppliers in Taiwan, South Korea, and Japan. And that's all for the news we have for you today. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to stay on top of the most important stories in Thailand. And now, time for me to go get a haircut, which will require 4 hours of intense surgical work. So in the meantime, you're now up to date on the Thaiger.